and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today I'll be working with the sunflower die set from Susan's Garden Favorite collection, and I've already die cut the sunflower petals multiple times. So I have 3 die cuts for each flower that I'll be assembling, and what I've done is just scribbled on some of my Faber-Castell gelatos right into the center. So I've chosen a color that's maybe like a shade darker than the cardstock that I'm using, and I have just this damp shop towel that I'm using to sort of spread out and even out some of that gelato. So gelatos, if you've never worked with them before, they are water soluble. But once they dry and have time to completely dry, then they're permanent, and so they won't move with water after that. So until then, though, if you just take a baby wipe, or what I'm using, just a damp cloth, you can blend, you can smooth out the color, and move that around a little bit. And so I'll do the same thing with the leaves. So I've die cut this out of colored cardstock, but I'm just adding a darker shade of green to the edges, and I just swipe down the center where the veining would be, and I'll again just sort of smooth a little bit of that out with my damp cloth here. And then I'll start to shape the flowers, petals, and the leaves. And I'm just going to do some really simple shaping. You may want to catch Susan's tutorial video if you want to see how to really make these a lot more realistic. But all I'm doing is from the back side, I'm just drawing a line from the outside of the petal straight to the center. And what that's going to do is just curl these petals inward. And when you flip it over, then it has the look of the petals actually curling downward. And so do that for each of the petals, and then I'll flip it over to the right side, the side that I put the color, and then I'll do some cupping in the center to bring all of that upwards. And one thing to note is so a couple things actually. So the smaller the ball stylus that you use, the more curling you'll get. Also, the firmer you push down, the more curling you'll get. So you can really control how much these petals curve inward or upward based on the size of the ball stylus. So here I switched over to a smaller ball stylus so I can get more crinkles and more cracking along the edges. And I'll also, draw a line down the center as well, just to get some of that that crinkling, that texture on the front and the back. So really, it's kind of just up to you what you think looks good, and how, I guess, realistic you want it to look, and the amount of texture you want to add. And you can choose different size ball stylus. You can change how firmly you're pressing down. And it's the same here when you flip this over and you do the cupping or that circular motion right in the center. The firmer you push down, the more those petals are going to come up. And so really, that's one way to kind of control the shape that you ultimately end up with. And when I stack these, I'm going to put the darker petals on the bottom, and I'm going to make sure to stagger the leaves so that the set of petals on top, there will always be a petal in between 2 petals below it. So that way your flower looks a little bit more full, and overall the flower will have a more sort of rounded shape to it. And then this die cut is sort of the start of, I guess, the center of the flower where all of the pollen is. And this is where I depart quite a bit from I think how Susan has normally designed this to be used, because you can see the dies off to the left side there. There's one die plate that cuts out a lot of like little they almost look like star shapes, and that die plate I think you could actually use for some really nice confetti fill if you wanted, but it's meant to go into sort of the center of your flower here. But what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to fill this circle with a nice dome of my Kalau 3D glue gel. And then I'm going to just generously put some pollen over it. And I'm even tapping it down a little bit just to, well, one, make sure that it sticks, that there's good adhesion and coverage of the pollen onto the glue, but also just to shape that dome a little bit, to round it out, because it's not self-leveling or anything like that. So by just pushing down, tapping down gently on it, I can sort of, make sure it's a little bit more smooth, a little bit more rounded, as opposed to how it comes out of the tube. And so I'll show you that again. So I've got 3 layers of the petals, and I'm going to stack them with the darkest petal on the bottom. And then I'm going to stagger the leaves so that, there's going to be, one petal in between every 2 petals below it. So that way you don't have a lot of gaps. The flower looks a little bit more natural, and you get a nice full flower that way. And then for the center, I'm just going to use one of these. I don't even know what this piece is called. I think the original sort of recipe, you can even see it on the die. It's sort of debossed. It says that you should have 2 of those pieces, but I'm only using 1. And then I put a nice dollop of the 3D glue gel right in the center. And then I'm going to pack over that some of, this is actually Nouveau flower pollen. And I'll dump the excess out, and then you have this nice dome where it kind of gives that impression of the flower pollen, but then I don't have to deal with all of those little die cuts off of that other die plate. So if you want to see how to assemble the sunflower the way it's designed to be assembled, then definitely check out Susan's tutorial on the Spellbinders YouTube channel, because I know that she definitely has one there. And here I'm going to just start to add some mats and layers. So I did get out the center of this purple panel because I needed another purple matte layer for the pattern paper that I'll be using. And this is a 6x6 paper, but I didn't have that purple in 12x12. And so rather than, cut into another 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, I just gutted out the center so that I could have a matte layer for this pattern paper. And as you saw earlier, though, I did fill in the square that I cut out of the larger mat. I did fill it in with just some plain white cardstock, and that's just to keep everything nice and level. And so this is just going to kind of build up the background scene for my flowers. And I thought that it was suggested to me to use yellows and grays. I think Joan suggested this to me because with purples, I often go with silver and black. And so I asked her for suggestions of other color combinations to use with purple. And she suggested yellow and gray. And so I've got a gray, sort of that checkered pattern paper and then the yellow of my sunflowers, and it looks fantastic. So thank you, Joan, for suggesting this color combo, because it's not one that I would have thought to try on my own. So love that that now I can sort of refer to this as a color combo to use in the future, because purples, I think I love the color purple, but it's just so hard for me to pick colors to go with it that I always just revert back to combining it with black and silver. So I'll just sort of compose my flowers here, and these are a nice generous size, so that's why I chose to create a 6x6 card, because I wanted to use 3 of them, and I think it would be hard to fit 3 on a US A2 size card. So having this larger canvas to work off of means that I can still leave some of that pattern paper to show, because I think it's really pretty, but as well be able to add enough of these flowers to really make a nice statement. And I'm just going to tuck, I used liquid PVA glue at the bottom of my flowers, but as I go to stick down my petals, or the leaves, I'm using a little bit of that same 3D Collal glue gel, just so that I can really nestle it and move it around, because it has such a long open time. You can really take your time arranging and composing your card. And like here, I just pulled that straight out and added more glue. So there's lots of time to kind of nudge those around if you need. And this die set also does come with 2 ladybugs, which I die cut originally out of just white and then colored with my alcohol markers. And this sentiment is actually from the APG, one of the card builder die sets, and it's gorgeous. And so I thought that it's nice and delicate, and I thought it would really fit this card well. So I didn't want a big bulky sentiment, because I did leave a lot of that pattern paper to show, because I thought it's just got some beautiful texture. So I wanted a sentiment that was a little bit more delicate, so that it's still going to be legible off of this, but especially with that shadow layer, but still let you kind of appreciate the pattern paper behind it. And so that pretty much wraps up my card. I love how these sunflowers look. They're really easy to assemble, especially with my little cheat of using the 3D glue gel in the center for the pollen instead of using the die cuts. So that is my card for today. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. And if you want to catch new videos as I publish them, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing the notification bell. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!